Parker discusses what happened. He knows the alien must be big and took Brett's remains into the air shafts. Dallas discusses the possibility of entering the air shafts to herd it into the airlock, and Ripley consults with Ash to come up with an effective weapon. They decide on flamethrowers. Dallas consults Mother, but she's entirely in the dark. Dallas decides that it's worth a try. They create a path leading from the air shafts to the airlock, and Dallas enters the air shafts with the flamethrower, depending on Lambert with the motion detector. He tells Ripley to close the doors behind him, and we see more of that concern. Lambert tells him the general area the alien's in, and he heads there to scare it into the airlock. She loses the signal around the time that he finds some slime, and then it barrels towards him. Giving voice to the audience, Lambert screams at him to run, but she has no third dimension on the motion detector, and he ends up entering the alien's path. Now that the captain's gone, Ripley is in charge. Dallas was a pretty likable guy, so I think most people would have wanted him to succeed. In his absence, we falter and try to find a new person to focus on. Ripley is still the annoying manager, so it's not her yet. Ripley figures that Dallas's plan is still sound, while Lambert thinks it's foolhardy. Lambert implores her to have them just escape in the shuttle and then blow up the ship, but Ripley says that the shuttle can't support 4 people. This exchange is the way that Alien passes the Bechdel test, a female-focused litmus test proposed in a comic penned by Ellison Bechdel, saying that a movie is only acceptable if it has at least 2 women who talk to each other about something other than a man. The comic says that Alien passes because Ripley and Lambert talk about the monster, but they don't do that in any meaningful way, and the conversation about the shuttle is the only real way it passes. The Bechdel test is often used in feminist film analysis, but I think it's only really useful when analyzing a wide scope of films to examine the general gender bias of the film industry as a whole, and doesn't say anything useful about an individual film's feminist value. Lambert acts like the typical emotional woman in a horror film, but I'll buy it. It makes sense under the circumstances, and she is otherwise given full respect as a crew member. We have Ripley to balance it out, so it's just realistically showing how different people react under stress. Plus, Lambert is supposed to be the mouthpiece of the audience. Lambert proposes drawing straws to see who stays behind, while the other 3 take the shuttle. Parker says no and that they should kill the alien. Ripley agrees and returns to Dallas's plan. Parker interrupts and Ripley screams at him to shut up while she's talking. If there was a relationship between Ripley and Dallas, it would seem like Ripley was stuck on her boyfriend's plan, like she's irrational because she was in love with Dallas. I'm not sure how true that would be, as the plan seems sound enough, and they don't really have the resources to handle the problem very differently. However, there would be that sense of irrationality that is thankfully absent in the context of the final movie, where it's just Ripley as the commanding officer trying to deal with the problem. Parker interrupting her and her snapping back is relevant to feminist interpretation. Interrupting someone is often an expression of social dominance, and female leaders get that more often than male leaders. So her putting him in his place makes her seem effective, and this display can be satisfying to women in the audience who have tried to lead men and gotten interrupted like that. At the same time, however, it makes her come across as unlikable. It's perhaps comparable to Captain Malcolm Reynolds in Serenity, where after watching his friend die, he gets bitter and unlikable as he orders his crew to do something they find immoral, or stay behind on the planet. The difference there is that it's already established that Mal is the protagonist. With Ripley, we haven't quite gotten there yet. Ripley orders that they together do a version of Dallas's plan. They'll go in pairs and seal rooms more cautiously until they can corner the alien and kick it into space. She asserts that they need to stay together, and that is the moment that I think she starts to be recognized as the protagonist. Her voice becomes soft, and it's clear that she cares about her crew. She bickers a bit with Ash because Ash and Mother have yet to come up with anything useful. As Ripley is now acting captain, she has access to Mother and goes to the computer room to talk to her. Mother gives the same non-answer she gave Dallas, but then reveals that she's acting according to a Special Order 937, which only Ash can access. Ripley now outranks him and uses an override command to learn what Special Order 937 is. Mother responds. It's a secret company mission to use Nostromo resources to investigate an alien life form and bring home a specimen for study. This is the highest priority. Crew expendable. This is the moment when the audience's understanding of the film changes. We're hit with crew expendable, and suddenly the horror is different. The evil isn't just out there, the evil is in here. Ash was working for Weyland-Yutani's psychopathic wishes all along, meaning all that humanitarian stuff was really just him plotting to hurt the crew, to make them host to an alien parasite. Ripley's cold insistence to follow the rules was the real humanitarianism. As Ash appears beside Ripley, it clicks in our brains that she is the good sympathetic character, and we want her to live and him to die. And in the next scene, we have another revelation about Ash. He's not human at all. He's an android. as much of an alien psychopath as the creature lurking in the air shafts. Ripley explodes in anger, and Ash is momentarily taken aback because he has no idea how to handle human emotion. She leaves to fill in the others, and Ash shuts doors to cut off her avenues for escape, similar to what Ripley did to Dallas during their not-lovers spat, but for the more disturbing reason that Ash is planning to attack. A bead of sweat appears on Ash's face, but it's bright white, our first sign that he's less than human. We'll see that this white liquid is his main body fluid, and it's evocative of semen for another sexual image. Being that he's filled with it, he's basically a big penis himself.
So I'm going to attack them sexually.
She confronts him, freaks out about the liquid, and then he attacks her in an android rape scene. Androids don't have functional genitalia, so he makes a phallic stand-in out of a rolled-up magazine and orally rapes her. I waffled back and forth as to whether to call this symbolic or literal rape, but he's the science fiction equivalent of a eunuch with a strap-on, and we'd call it rape if the eunuch shoved the strap-on down a woman's throat, so I think it makes sense to call this a literal rape scene even if it uses a phallic stand-in. It achieves the effect of rape as a social interaction, and as we humans are social creatures, that matters more than functional biology. It follows the facehugger's literal rape of Cain, and as Ash will say that he admires the alien, some speculate his motive is to become more like the alien and distance himself from weak, empathetic humanity. I personally think the effect is lessened because it's clear that Ian Holm was trying not to hurt Sigourney Weaver, and it breaks my suspension of disbelief when the magazine doesn't actually get very far in her mouth. The method of attack is strange enough that I imagine many people don't get what's going on, and I don't think it's very effective as a rape scene. Nevertheless, Ash rapes Ripley, and we are now fully sympathetic to Ripley. I have some issues with the idea that a cold, authoritarian woman is made likable through a rape scene. It feels to me like she's obnoxious in her disliked authoritarian position until she's brought down a few pegs and suffers in a way characteristically feminine, so now we see her as a woman and can care about her. On the other hand, we realize we have the wrong idea about Ash at Crew Expendable, and when he pops up next to her, I do think we care about Ripley in a room with a monster. The rape can be seen as just an intense struggle against a foe in a movie about rape, and we can come to care about her more out of sympathy for a hero character. I'm not entirely sure, maybe it's a bit of both. In any case, I appreciate that we come to care about her through her own struggle, and not simply through Dallas's empathy, as may have happened if the relationship were still there. Lambert and Parker arrive and try to pull Ash off of her, with Parker asserting himself as a protector figure, with heroic aggression. I think this makes Parker remarkable as a black character. Most black guys in horror films are either red shirts or used in a scary way, with their masculinity tied into predatory aggression, and often in a sexually intimidating way. Parker completely avoids those negative portrayals, and here comes in as a dashing hero to save the damsel from the evil villain, not to mention getting over his animosity with his boss to do the right thing when it's required of him. It's a fairly awesome moment. With regard to the gender analysis, besides the issues I've already discussed, I'm okay with the damsel kind of thing with the man saving the woman, because there is great respect shown to Ripley. Even when we don't like her, there's a sense of respect. As Parker strikes Ash, Ash increasingly malfunctions until it's revealed that he's an android when his head comes off.
'Tis but a scratch.
Even that doesn't do him in, and Lambert ends up saving him by striking Ash with a cattle prod.
Just a flesh wound.
That moment is what justifies the Lambert character for me. I'm not a big fan of her overall weakness, but here she comes through when she needs to. The remaining Nostromo crew pull together. Ripley repairs Ash just enough so that he can speak, and they interrogate him. Now, when she's aggressive, we are completely behind that aggression. Ash repeats Special Order 937 and says that the alien cannot be killed. He describes it as the perfect life form, a highly evolved psychopathic killer that he deeply admires. He gives one last parting taunt and Ripley deactivates him. She declares that they're going to blow up the ship and escape in the shuttle. Parker barbecues Ash.
All right, we'll call it a draw.
Ripley sends Parker and Lambert to get supplies while she prepares the shuttle. Ripley hears meowing, though, and goes after Jones. The cat is more than just a complication. Now that we know to like Ripley, we can see that she's a caring person who would try to save the ship's cat. She finds Jones, but the alien finds Parker and Lambert. Ripley hears them freaking out on the comm, and she runs to help, but she's too late. The alien symbolically rapes them to death, beating Parker with its second mouth, and suggestively drawing its tail up Lambert's leg. We cut to Ripley and hear Lambert scream, followed by some weird panting sounds. When asked what she thinks happens after we cut away, actress Veronica Cartwright speculates that the alien rapes her. I think that the alien does not literally rape her, but that the scene is shot as to imply rape, as part of an overall theme about rape. Looking at the image the alien is based on, we can also see that the tail was created to have phallic symbolism. I think that all of these rape-themed deaths are acceptable from a feminist perspective, as they're very simply horrific. I like how Ripley shudders when she sees Parker's body. It's a very human expression of weakness without paralysis. So now Ripley is the protagonist. Very exciting. When this came out, it was rare to have a female protagonist in this kind of movie. Ridley Scott describes making Ripley female a master stroke, because her being the protagonist comes completely unexpectedly, which strikes me as less than appreciative of the social effects of such a decision. It is very significant to have a woman in this role as a heroic survivor. We know she's strong, we've suffered with her, and we can appreciate her struggles for survival against the monstrous alien. Now on her own, she runs to activate the self-destruct sequence. Mother's announcement of a 10-minute window is the only other voice we'll have besides Ripley. In the director's cut, there's then a scene that I personally feel is a great addition to the film as a self-contained story, but it can't be accepted as canon without throwing off mythos from the other films. Ripley finds a section of the ship that the alien has converted to its own nest, and she finds cocooned crew members, whose cocoons are eggs. The alien is converting them into eggs. That brings a scary finality to the alien life cycle. You can also see more of a vaginal appearance to the eggs. These might be props that were used before the studio made Giger redesign them. Dallas moans, "Kill me," and Ripley delivers mercy through dousing them with flame, and she moves on. The alien gets between her and the shuttle, but is distracted by Jones and the cat carrier. Mother says that the window is almost over, so Ripley runs back to turn it off. The sequence to activate the self-destruct process is complicated to make sure no one ever does it who doesn't need to, and turning it off is everything in reverse, and she can't get it done in time. Ripley yells to Mother to stop it, but the automated voice says that the ship will self-destruct, so Ripley shouts that Mother is a bitch, and she strikes the computer in retaliation. I don't particularly like that use of the misogynistic slur, but the scene effectively illustrates how the Nostromo has turned completely dangerous. It was their home, but it was invaded. A crew member turned out to be evil. The alien is corrupting the walls, and now Mother has turned against Ripley and will blow up the ship. It is a complete loss of innocence, trust, and security. Now she has no choice, and she makes her way to the shuttle. Jones seems fine, and the alien is nowhere to be seen, so she grabs the case and runs in the shuttle. She hurries to launch the shuttle and get out of range before the ship explodes. She looks on with satisfaction as the Nostromo is obliterated. She can finally rest. No alien anymore.